Hey, how's it going, guys? Ancient Ring here, back with another Wonderlands build video, and today I will be going over my new Stormbringer update. I have definitely increased the damage a lot since last time, and a lot has been discovered since my last build video. The old version works fine, and nothing has been changed since then, and also nothing's been nerfed, nothing's been buffed. But I just wanted to show how much stronger this build is with new discoveries. You can also use Cleansing Flames on this setup, which we didn't do before. The save file for this build will be found in my Discord link down below. You can also find my Twitch, where I stream from time to time. And if you like this build, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't. And I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, and for the gear here, we use a Hyperius SMG with a 40% melee blade. This is used for consistent melee damage and allowing for the use of our shell casing rings. The Chaos Interior element doesn't really matter at all, even the level. You just need the 40% blade, and then why we can use the shell casing ring is because we can shoot this down to low ammo. It'll give that reload flashing notification, and that's when you have this bonus activated, and then we can keep it like that because you don't need to shoot for anything, and so it's just always there, and it's just an active bonus. The Scalawag can still be used, but it does mean you're doing more shooting than meleeing. It's probably better if you don't have shell casing rings. I don't know if it's optimal or not, but you don't really need melee bolts in bossing, so that's why we don't really use it as much anymore. You could use either action skill start or spellcast all damage on your weapon for the enchant. Spellcast is better for cleansing flames, with action skill start being better for Stormdragon's Judgement. Although Stormdragon's Judgement is fine with either enchant, so if you only want to use one gun and not have to switch between two, then I'd probably go spellcast all damage. Since we don't use melee bolts, we go the Tooth Raider here for bossing, because this is where melee bolts really come in handy, is bossing. The melee bolts are pure multi your damage, and the parts don't matter here at all, nor the chaos tier, nor the level. The enchant also doesn't matter, as we swap right to our gun. Then we use a delusion for soaked. If we want to use soaked, it will decrease fire damage, which does mean that Smithy's Ire or fire weapons will do less. So I don't really use it as much, but it is an option. Again, that doesn't really matter with parts or tier or enchant at all. And then Stabbomancer is used for ranged melee, mainly to save your soul. As our spell and hammer are usually ranged, it isn't needed as much on this build, but it's nice to have. I prefer a times 7 with probably optimally spellcast all damage or melee, since you usually swap to it after going down. You can't activate your action skill for action skill start enchants, so you don't really have many options there. But I don't really need it too much. I just kind of have it sitting here and I never swap to it. But if you don't go Smithy's Ire, then this is a lot more useful. Our melee weapon is still the Goblin's Pickaxe with high crit chance of 21%. I like to use fire as my element, but it doesn't really matter too much. Make sure not to use fire if you're using soaked a lot, as it's just worse. Consecutive Hits enchant is still optimal here, with it being card melee boost, which is only additive with Time and Truth melee here, as that's what we use for our armor. There are other card boost melee, but just not in this build. This enchant only stacks with actual melee swings and not just any melee damage. So if you hit with hammer or Smithy's Ire or Stabbomancer, it will not boost. It will not stack this damage. The enchant also doesn't apply to Smithy's Ire nor Stabbomancer, as it only boosts the card damage of melee weapons. So that is something to keep in mind if you want to make one of those stronger. There are a lot of different hilt options to use based on how you choose to play. The hilt mod I like to use is either Warrior or Caustic, but both do great for boosting in melee and Alchemical Agent. Caustic is better if you melee less often, as it only has 1 stack, while Warrior is 5 stacks. If you want to use Cleansing Flames, you need a source of consistent cooldown, and that's where the Ancient Hill comes in. Let me find one. Yeah, right here. Ancient melee attacks restore 5% of your active skill cooldown. This is very, very useful, as you don't really give up much survivability for this. And then we do use Cursed Wit here, but it's very risky, so you can go Body Rune and then go a Vampire Hilt, and that'll just increase your survivability by double from going one Body Rune and 2 Vampire Hilt. So speaking of shields, we shall go to the shield. Cursed Wit is our main shield, as it gives up to 100% conditional damage, which is only additive with our spell enchant here. This conditional damage will double dip in Alchemical Agent. I use a low level Cursed Wit to help break my shield easier, but in the end it doesn't really matter. If you didn't know, the enchant bonuses scale with your player level and not the item level. So at level 40, an enchant item at level 20 is getting the same enchant bonus as a level 40 item. Roid part is optimal for melee damage, but a fleet or health part will do great for survivability. In the end, the part doesn't really matter as much as getting a Cursed Wit. Also, Chaos here doesn't really matter too much, but getting a low Chaos here one does help with consistency with Cursed Wit. But this does leave you very weak, and you need to play carefully and pay attention a lot. You can very easily die this way, but I also like to play this way sometimes. Another option I use is the Body Rune. Just the all-round best shield for survivability, and also gives a fire bonus up, which is great. Obviously not as good if you use Soaked a lot, but still good to have. Either health or capacity part will help. It doesn't really matter too much. The enchant you want to use will decide on how much survivability you want. I like to use the low health enchant, as it's great for survivability and keeping us above health gate. If you want more damage, then you can go either spellcaster, action skill start, all damage. The choice you make will depend on what enchant you have on your gun. You can also go melee enchants on either of those two, but it's more worth getting all damage, as it will double dip in Alchemical Agent, while melee damage doesn't. The main amulet you want to use is Skeep, as it's one of the best survivability tools in the game. It's just a healing barrel that goes around flying, doing healing novas constantly, and it also can give us second wind. You want to focus on Clawbringer power and getting either all damage or status effect damage. Either or, doesn't matter. I'm using one of each just because on my optimal perfect gear setup, this is better, but all depends on min-maxing on your gear. But in the end, it doesn't matter. You'll still destroy things. Then you either want to get shock damage or fire damage based on what hammer you choose. So I have a fire one here for Cleansing Flames and a lightning for Stormbringer Judgement. You can also use a Thurge for better cooldown for Cleansing Flames, but you do lose survivability, and that's where I'd probably change your shield and maybe hilt mod option. Also, if you have a good purple, it could probably beat these, and then you just, again, go better survivability options. This goes the same for rings, which I'll go over later. And technically armor. The spell I like to use is the Smithy's Ire, as it deals melee damage. Ideal parts I like to look for is Spell Charge and Extra Projectile, and then cooldown is nice for spam. You'll see I have a bunch of different combinations I've messed with. I like either having... Let's see, where is it? The double spell charge and extra projectile, or one spell charge, one extra projectile and cooldown rate, but farming sucks, so just get what you can get. The spellcast melee damage and knockback is conditional damage that applies to all melee damage sources. This only automatically stops if you do a melee swing, otherwise non-swing melee damage will get the bonus and not end it automatically. This bonus stays until the duration ends, meaning you can use multiple sources of melee damage before the timer is up. Another spell you can use is a Frost Empowering Sigil. This will give us more melee damage because of frozen enemies versus melee damage. And so it's just really good, and it's also great for survivability. This is more focused if you want better hammer damage, and you'll still have great pickaxe damage. I still like going Smithy's Irons. It's more fun, but it is more risky, especially with my survivability choices. It all depends on what you want to use. Also, Empowering Sigil, you may have less uptime on Cursed Wit. I haven't tested it on here in a while, but it's all just kind of depends on what you want to do and what you like. Now for the armor, you always want to go Clawbringer Primary, and there are a couple Clawbringer Primary with other class secondary that give all, and in the end, the secondary doesn't matter as much. The stabbomancer power is great for the crit chance increase, but it's not that impactful. And so here we have Clawbringer power. I think the armors are Claw Stabbo, Claw Blight, and Claw Spell Shot. Ideally, you just want all. All helps with crit chance. It gives a really good crit damage. It's just amazing damage. Now, the passive you mainly want to focus on are area damage, as that is pretty much a pure mult in this setup. We don't have area damage anywhere else, so that is probably the best way to have it. Other passives we want to look out for is all damage, melee crit chance, move speed, and also melee health increase does help as well. Melee crit chance helps us get to our crit to 100%, so we have constant melee crits for our chemical agent. All crit chance for melee bonuses chosen will depend on if you need it or not. So if you already have 100% crit chance from other stuff, you won't need more. Tyrant's Truth is probably the best armor to use here, as its card melee boost, which is only added with melee enchant on this setup. There are some other things that probably have higher peak, but I don't like as much. But there is also some other armor types, which is Amalgam, Cape of Tides, Miasmic Mail, and then the Brutal Stampede with a Frostburn spell. With Brutal Stampede, it can give melee card boost, which is the same as Tyrant's Truth. It can also give crit chance and crit damage, but it does mean changing your spell with Frostburn, which you then have to try and upkeep and focus on, and then you don't use the Smithy's Ire, which is something I don't like to do. And then for the rings, I used to use Lethal Catch because I thought it gave that 66% bonus for the land crabs and whatever it was, but it's actually bugged, and that 66% increase does not work at all. So you really just want to look for any rings with melee damage stats, even purples. Ideally, you'll want the shell casing rings, but it's also a haired farm, and we're keeping it up with our Hyperius SMG, so if you don't use that, then shell casing rings don't matter. You want to look for, of course, the melee stat, melee damage, and then crit chance helps with more consistent alchemical agent procs, and then of course crit damage, because we're going to be critting a lot. Alright, our skill tree looks a little weird since last time, but it has good reasoning. A couple dead skill points in Clawbringer, but like don't hurt us. Oath of Thunder we still go, of course, because we're doing melee. Since we aren't shooting guns at all, we don't go Oath of Fire. We do shoot time to time, but that's mainly for bossing, doesn't really matter. Use a Scalawag, put 1 point in here from either Rebuke or Dedication. I'd probably go Dedication, but it doesn't matter. Just for that, to help proc all. And then here we have Dragon Aura, always take elemental damage for everything. Rebuke gives lightning damage to help proc all, which is technically nice, even though we don't have a problem with it. But the damage reduction is also semi-decent. And then we go Dedication, just because it's the thing that helps the most. Radiance doesn't help because we want our ward broken. And then just having some cooldown rate is pretty nice. If you get having Wyvern, and because you don't run Time of Truth, then you can go Firebolt here, and that'll help with all. And then we only go Storm Breath here because of the damage reduction. And then here we go all. You want to get 3 out of 3. We don't need to go Indomitable here because we're using Cursed Wit. If you don't use Cursed Wit, take a point out of here and put it there. And then there's also sometimes a option to go Executioner's Blade if you want some more ranged option. but I definitely don't think it's needed here on this type of build. So then you just kind of take a lot out. You probably take most of this out. I don't have an exact skill tree set up for it, but yeah, you'd probably go like 10 points here. But you don't really have to worry about that too much, but if you did want to, you can go Executioner's Blade. And then here, pretty normal skill tree, I'd say. You go Haste, Potent Poisons, Exploit their weakness. Exploit their weakness is a pure mult on the setup. Haste gives swing speed and move speed. Potent Poisons, stat effect damage. And then Swift Death we go here. This is stuff you can change if you are shooting a Scalawag. The Nimble Fingers helps for the fire rate. Spell damage doesn't help, as the Smithy's Ire does not get spell damage boost. So it's mainly just for the fire rate. But Swift Death gives some decent all damage, up to 30%, which you might be getting with what gear I have. I'm not sure. Shadow Step doesn't help here, as it's only for melee swings, and we swing pretty fast, and we have 100% crit chance most of the time, optimally, so it doesn't really matter. Elusive is just really good survivability for a chance to dodge an attack. Of course, shooting and strength doesn't matter too much here unless you're using a Scalawag. Contagion, double dip status effect damage, makes it really strong without Chemical Agent, which makes a double dipping status effect based on our melee crit hit. And then for hero points, pretty much all of these are good. You want to go max dexterity or as much as you need for 100%. Obviously, I don't have bonuses active right now, so I don't have 100% here, but I do have 100.4% crit chance. Now, you may not hit as much, and probably it's not optimal to go 100% as you are giving up damage, but it's still nice to have that consistency, and you don't have to worry about like that one time you needed that proc and it doesn't. And then you'll want to max status effect damage, as this helps your alchemical agent. And then I take spell cooldown, as it helps spam my spell more, but definitely not needed. You can go max health HP for survivability, skill cooldown for cleansing flames if you want to go that, or crit damage. If you don't have a lot of crit damage from your rolls here, it would definitely help more. Also, you may notice I'm not going Village Idiot here. This is a preference of going Clown Blood for more spell cooldown. For damage wise, you'd probably want to go Village Idiot, but in the end, background doesn't matter too much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This build is super strong and melts bosses easily. Clawbringer has some really cool stuff, which is made even stronger with stabbomancer's skill tree. The new options for gear also really helps making gearing a lot easier. Also, being able to use cleansing flames is really fun. Again, the save file will be found in my Discord, and make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. I hope you guys enjoyed the build, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.